Okay, I think all systems are a go. Looks like we are recording on all fronts. Hello and welcome everybody to the Adahy Adventures podcast. I am your host, Jake Stevens, and today I'm joined with my father, Branden Stevens. Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
We're trying something a little different. We're doing as per usual with quarantine, the whole COVID thing, we're doing a Zoom meeting, which is pretty much the norm in today's age, at least.
This is the first Zoom meeting I've looked forward to be honest.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, we're gonna see how this goes. Try to make sure that everything's working here. Screen's recording. Yeah, so we're gonna be posting as long as this goes well, which I imagine it will. We're gonna be posting the podcasts on not only YouTube, I believe. Well, no, we have never posted the videos on YouTube, but we are gonna start posting the podcasts on YouTube with these conversations, like the actual videos from Zoom and whatnot, or in person whenever this whole thing hopefully someday blows over. As well as where we usually have it is just on iTunes, and I believe it's on Spotify, if I'm not mistaken. I have a platform that sort of sends it out to wherever, to both of those spots. But yeah, so we're going to be doing video with the audio now, which is new, and I'm pretty excited for it. So hopefully it goes well, and hopefully people enjoy what they see and hear. There's a lot to cover. It's been a while since we've done a proper podcast, but without further ado, I suppose it's time to talk about the things that we need to talk about. 2020 has been a tough year for a lot of people. That's an understatement for sure. But as far as hunting goes, I mean, this has been a tough year for me personally, just like being in, I mean, now like I'm in quarantine, and I've been in quarantine several times. And so like those days where you get stuck inside and you just can't really leave, like that's tough. And so this is a tough time for a lot of people. But I think a super awesome escape was the hunting season and everything that came with that, being able to get outside without really having to worry about everything that was going on in everybody's everyday lives, the horrors of 2020. But what I'm getting at is just 2020, the hunting season, like exceeded my expectations in every sense of the phrase, every sense of the word expectations. I don't know about you.
Yes, 100% agreed.
Yeah, it was something special. I kind of had a feeling like based on the tag that you got, and just to me, like before every hunting season, I'm 100% in belief that it's going to be the best hunting season ever. And like this one so far had, like, it was that, at least for me, and I'm assuming for you as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been a few moments in hunting that I think are kind of rival this year, but like watching you get your first deer and my first deer with my dad and stuff like that, I think definitely rivals this year. But this year by all means was the most phenomenal year.
Yeah. And yeah, I can agree with that. It's like there's been moments throughout my hunting career that have been pretty stellar, but just like, I don't know, the feel of this year was, to me, it was different, like 100%. And it's such a broad thing to talk about. It's hard for me to sort of like find an area to go, but like, I don't know. I just like, for me, like the spoiler alert of this whole podcast is that we got you your bull elk.
Yeah.
And that comes, like, it's not a thing I can just say. And like the story behind it is such an incredible series of events.
I'm still grinning.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't know, we're probably a month removed. Not even a month, actually, come to think of it. Like, we're not even a month away from you shooting that elk.
Yeah, no, not even a month. I still wake up like it's weird, like I'll wake up and just like it seems surreal that it happened.
Yeah,
And
to this day, it does.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think the funniest part is just and I'm so excited to be able to get to this conversation finally and talk about this bull elk, because the way that everything happened from the draw to like us actually finally getting out hunting to the actual harvest is so dynamic. Like it's such a cool story, and so I guess right off the bat, the first thing I'm going to get off the full disclosure, this is going to be this not just one podcast. So we're not going to cover the whole story just tonight, just on this one video. This is part one of what I'm assuming is probably going to be a two-part podcast, but maybe part three if we get real long-winded. But yeah, so we're going to get into all the details, all the good stuff about this elk hunt. But first, I think we need to sort of at least discuss, like, we need to have a whole season in review and kind of talk about what all went down, expectations, like, and just sort of pick this thing apart, at least to a certain level. So yeah, like to me, like hunting season starts in March. That's when like you put your applications in for a lot of things. Like that's around the time where you start applying for elk or deer, or antelope, and then you have, bighorn sheep, mountain goat, moose, all that stuff in that sort of, March to May sort of area. That to me is sort of where like hunting season starts, because that's when you figure out what you've got and what you're going after. And we'll get into the elk part and sort of how that went down shortly. But I guess let's break down sort of everything else. We both drew antelope tags.
Yep.
You did not fill yours this year.
No, I didn't. And it still feels it's kind of like I don't even think about it because of the season that we had. But yeah, it almost is like I forget.
Yeah.
That
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I was fortunate. No, I still feel bad that we didn't get you your antelope. It just, I don't know, we got close, but just that other.
Yeah, I was too picky.
Well, I don't know. The other tag was sort of like at the forefront of everyone's mind, and so it's like when you talk about going to hunt an antelope over, this bull elk.
Wait. Yeah, and I think too, like the other aspect of it is that I kept thinking throughout bow season and the beginning of rifle season that, like, well, we'll break off for a day or an afternoon and we'll, go hunt antelope, but just kept hunting elk.
Yeah. Well, and I was certainly not opposed to it. It was the funnest time I've ever had elk hunting. And I don't know, it's one of those years that like, I know that for the foreseeable future, and I imagine like most of my adult life, I'm going to compare the next bunch of years of my life to this year as far as hunting goes. Like this is going to be one of those years that you try to live up to that, and you try to like compare other hunting seasons to that, and it just, I don't think it's going to be, I don't know, they're going to be great hunting seasons, but this was so organic, and it was, I don't know, it was just incredible.
Yeah, Richards asked me, he's like, how are you going to deal with next year or the year after or the next 10 years after this season? And, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that,
Yeah.
but it's a good thing to have to think about.
Right.
I'm just enjoying, this season and, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of get lost because I think about it so much, but,
right.
I think next year it's going to be a great year too. But yeah, I think unfortunately there's no way around it. Like, everything that happened this season, yeah, the remainder of my hunting days, however long that is, 40 years, hopefully. But it's going to be compared to this year without a doubt.
Yeah, I get that sense too for myself. Like everything that just happened, it was just so fun. So we're going to get into it. We're going to break down kind of what we experienced on each side. There's Willow the cat. She's joining the show. Look, she's in her own world. Um, so yeah, I was fortunate enough to harvest my antelope. Got my buck. It was my third antelope buck in 3 years. So I've gone 3 for 3 on antelope, and it was a beautiful, beautiful buck. Super fun hunt. I was out with our own Miranda Boger, my girlfriend. She joined me on that hunt, and we actually that was the first hunt of my life that was 100% on film. We got everything on film. We like kill shot everything. Um, so
Yeah.
that was special to me. It was really fun. Um, I don't want to waste too much time on all these ones, but like I've never gotten to like tell the stories quite yet. I don't believe on any of the podcasts. So basically, it was just each hunt was so organic and so like thrilling in its own little ways. Like this one, like me and Miranda snuck up onto this antelope. Initially, we were like less than 100 yards, and we came over this. I mean, the only cover I had was just like thin, tall grass, and I could see them, and I was trying to get ready for a shot, and it just didn't happen. They ended up busting over a hill, so we followed them, and I was looking over the hill. Incidentally, they were standing there like herded up at like 300 yards, pretty much on the dot. And this was following like the worst year of shooting I've ever had, and I've talked about it 1,000 times about how bad, like my rifle scope was broke and I didn't know it, so I was missing a ton last year. And then this year, like it was kind of this pivotal moment of like I put in hours and hundreds of dollars to this rifle scope, to this rifle to make it work. And it was cool because it was like, is this gonna work? And in that moment, sat down, 300 on the dot, pulled the trigger, and just right in the breadbasket, smoked him. It's so satisfying when you hit an animal and it just drops when it's
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
and that's sort of foreshadowing what we will be talking about. Probably not tonight, but we will get to the harvest. Probably, I don't know, tomorrow if your schedule allows that. We'll figure it out. But yeah, so dropped my antelope. We ended up eating your tag, which is fine. And then I believe we went out and we got Miranda's deer, which I think hers was next, which I'll cover that in another podcast with her. But yeah, Miranda finally got her first deer. Well, not finally, it was just her first year of hunting. So it was a huge success. She got her deer. And then next was your buck, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I was thinking Austin's, but
Oh, yeah, we were on another harvest with Austin Stradley, one of our buddies, and we were fortunate enough to get him a super nice mule deer buck. Um, and that was during like our big bad snowstorm that made it seem like this year was going to be just a horrible year of snow, but it ended up pretty much melting. And like now we're 5 days out from Christmas and we hardly have any snow on the ground. So that was a super notable snowstorm because it was rank for a few weeks.
yeah.
But yeah, long story short, we got Austin his buck. Super fun hunt, super tough pack out, but that's what makes it worth it. And then pretty much not the same area, but like near to where we shot his deer, we ended up getting yours. And so if you want to give a quick little synopsis about what happened there.
Oh yeah, I was hunting with you and Miranda, and we we kind of it was a weekend where there ended up being a lot of hunters in that area, which um, coming in early that morning, I was somewhat frustrated with the number of hunters because I remember, the area that we were going and that dirt road, um, you very rarely see a vehicle, and we had like 6 or 8 trucks behind us. It was just, I was kind of frustrated, and then there was people all over the place, and so I just kind of changed my hunting tactics based on how many people were around. And it ended up paying off because I was just like, I think if I just find a place and just kind of hunker down and wait, eventually something's going to come by because there's so many people pushing so many animals. And I just thought if I just kept hiking, that we would just, continue to push things. And yeah, it happened so fast. That was what blew me away,
Well,
from
plus,
where I just
I don't
kind
know if you
of
mentioned
down.
this. I don't know. I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't know if you mentioned this, but they were also rutting, and so their activity, the deer's activity, was spiked as it was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They were running really hard, and the GPS forecast for when the animals were out based on um, sun and moon and that cycle was saying that there was going to be a really active day for hunting. And yeah, it blew me away because I sat down on that on along that ridge just so I could see through the bottom. And I figured maybe an hour, 2 hours, something had come by, and it was literally, I want to say it was 8 minutes. I mean, it was so quick. It just was like boom. All of a sudden, there was animals hiking by, and I don't know. It was probably 45 minutes when I saw my deer, and I saw him for quite a ways away. I was glassing with binoculars, and I was like, man, that deer might come straight down here, and he did. Came straight down the canyon, and I got to a point where I could take a shot, and I got him, and yeah, it was I don't know, just being able to change tactics from how I normally like to hunt made it it was very satisfying.
Yeah.
Um, and then before we could even get him quartered out, a full on blizzard hit.
Yeah, that's right. There was a whiteout that I was hiking back to the truck to grab the meat packs, and I got caught because you guys stayed behind to um what's the word? What'd you do to him? Quartered him
We
out.
quartered him out.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you guys stayed behind to quarter him out, and I went to go get the meat packs, and I got caught in a whiteout up on the top of this like plateau. And it was
It was a
actually
really wet snow.
yeah, it was really sticky. Like I remember like my hat like accumulated like I don't know 3 inches of snow on the front of it because the wind was like I don't know pushing 30 I bet, and the snow was like so thick and like it was a true whiteout, and I kind of got lost on my way to the truck. But yeah, so we successfully got yours back, hiked him out. He was a heavy buck. Um, that was a fun hunt, and then I suppose it was me next, I guess. Then, huh? There's sort of maybe a
Yep.
little, there's actually would have been quite a big gap between when you shot your buck and then when I got to mine, because it was a whole different weather system.
Yeah.
Like
Mine was in October, I believe, and yours was in November.
late November too, but it was still like
Yeah.
my buck was I don't know, it was like 40, 50 degrees that day. Clear, like we didn't have snow on the ground. It
Yep.
all melted. It had been warm. Oh, but yeah, so for mine it gets to I don't know, I had been hunting every single weekend. So like it wasn't for lack of effort that we didn't get anything between when you shot your deer to when I shot mine. Um got to it was cool. This is so like there's two stories hunting experiences, well three. One my favorite of all time is like it changed this year. It used to be when I shot my elk. My elk is now my top three favorite. It's my third favorite hunting story. And now it's like a toss up. I don't know which story is my favorite between you getting your elk and me shooting my deer this year. Those are two that are sort of fighting for first place. I don't know which one is my favorite, but they're both, it's top two. They're both up there. Um, so I had, it was just like a whole weekend I went out and we were getting our butts kicked out hunting, just to no avail, no luck. And then it was a Monday afternoon. I was super excited because I'm like, I have to go to work on Monday, and I was gonna get off at 3, and I was like, I'm gonna go to this spot real close to town, 20 miles from town. From work. I get off work at 3, drove out to the spot, straight to the spot. I had all my hunting stuff in the pickup. I was in my like work suit, like my suit still when I got to the field. I got to the field and I actually like changed just right there on the highway, right in that pull out to the spot. So I changed clothes, forgot my binoculars, which isn't like a big deal, but like I hate not having my binoculars hunting. It feels like almost as bad as not having a gun. Um,
Mhm.
and I had I don't know maybe an hour. maybe, and that might be even a stretch. I had an hour to hunt, and so I'm like, I'm gonna go drive this road and see if it's kind of towards the evening, obviously. So I'm like, maybe something's gonna be out near the road. And so I drive this whole stretch of road, finally get to the road close sign, and I didn't see any animals. Um, Incidentally, and luckily for me, they were rutting, and so it's any man's game when they're deer are rutting. You never know. So I get to the
It
road
was a
close
long
sign.
rut this year.
Yeah, it was because your deer in October was rutting. Fast
Yep.
forward to like I don't know, my deer was probably like November 20th, 24th. It was around there. Um, yeah, so it was. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy long, but it made it quite a bit of fun hunting the rut because that's my favorite. I love hunting the rut for deer. Like it's such an exciting time. Like you're driving all these roads and you have deer everywhere. It's so cool. So I get to the road close sign and I was like, I was torn. I was like, do I want to get out and walk with such little time or do I just want to try my luck driving the road back? And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm going to lose light anyways. So I might as well just like get out and do a little hike. So I got to the spot and I'm like, I'm gonna get out and hike. So I get out and I probably had only been hiking, like I hiked down low and then was like just a little tiny canyon. Like I maybe hiked like 100 yards, 150 yards, and it took me about 2 minutes. And I saw a deer. I saw two deer, like real close. I knelt down. I was up on this super steep hill, and I ranged them. They were like 330, I think, but I wasn't on a flat surface, so like I couldn't get a good shot. But they were just standing there broadside staring at me, and I'm like, okay, like and it wasn't a huge buck. It was one buck with a doe, and he was a 4x4 or something, but he was like smaller, and he wasn't like I was gonna shoot him. Like I had every intention to shoot him, but I was like, I need to get closer at least if I'm gonna shoot him. So they never took their eyes off me. I snuck down, moved closer on this next hill that was only 30 some yards ahead, closer, laid down, and they were still there. And as I was laying down, I pulled out the rangefinder and they bolted over the next hill. So I was like, I still have time. I looked on my phone, I still had some sunlight. And so I was like, I'm gonna do it. So I sprinted down this canyon, came over the other side where they ran over, and I was like, I don't know, as far as I knew they were gone. So I hike along this ridge at the top, and I see way like 500 yards out, I see the specks of like there's two deer down there, and so I'm like, I'm gonna go for it. I just when you see deer during the rut, you're like, there's a buck there, like pretty certain. So I was like, I'm gonna go for it. So I started kind of hightailing it down there. At that point, I had 23 minutes of legal shooting light. Um, and as I was going, I spooked up the same buck from earlier. He like darted in front of me like 20 yards, but no time. He was gone in a flash. So I'm like, I just gotta keep going. So I'm going and going and going, and I finally get to this spot where I see them, and I like lay down. I got a perfect shooting rest. It's super level, and I ranged them, and they were like past 100 yards some ways. And then right when I got ready to maybe try to shoot, they dropped below this hill that was right. It was me, this hill, and then the hill they were on. They dropped down so I couldn't see them. And I'm trying to just get through the story as fast as I can, recall all the details so we can get to the good stuff. But
This
saw
is
this.
the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. This is like one of my favorite. It was one of the, and I was solo this night. So it was
Yeah.
cool, like that it all kind of worked out like that. But so they dropped down, and I'm like, okay, crap. Like I'm so out of daylight that like I have to just hope that they pop out at this one spot right in front of me in this open field. So I'm sitting there waiting, and I'm like, I range 97 yards. I range again 97 yards, and I'm sitting there waiting, just hoping. Like I just knew the deer was going to come out right at that one spot. It was perfectly in the open. There was a good backrest behind him, so like the bullet couldn't have traveled anywhere. It was perfect, and I was just sitting there. All I needed was for him to walk out, and he was chasing a doe. I couldn't see him. I was just sitting there hoping and waiting, and sure enough, doe comes over the top of that hill. She comes out into this open field. Buck is right behind, sniffing right behind her. I just knew in my head 97 yards, so right on the center crosshair. I put it where I needed to. I pulled the trigger, and he kicked hard. in the last several times I saw a deer kick like that, I missed them. And they were just like kicking because, you know, it was close. But he kicked hard and I was like, I knew I hit him. But he disappeared back over that hill. And all of a sudden, over to my left was a buck and a doe. And I was like, I look up and I'm about to pull the trigger at this, what I thought was the one I either missed or hit. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I was like, okay, hold up. I don't want to put myself into a situation where I just shot and killed a buck and he dropped right down below that hill and then think I see him and drop this other one. And then all of a sudden I got 2 bucks down and about to lose my hunting license. So I was like, okay, I got to just wait and trust that I mortally wounded this deer. So I got up and I was losing so much light that I was like, I would usually want to wait after a shot, but I'm like, I have to go look for blood. I started looking. I didn't see a drop of blood anywhere. I moved up to where I had seen that buck running up the hill and I'm looking for blood there and I don't see anything. I'm like, okay, I just need to calm down. I don't know what just happened. Like I thought I hit this buck. So I'm walking back down. I'm like, I got to start from point 0 where I know I shot at him. So I'm walking back down. And as I'm walking down, I had just the right angle to where like I could see this deer's body and I knew it was a dead deer. I knew I got my deer. And for a few split seconds, I didn't know if that was a buck or a doe because the way it died, its body was up top, but then like there was a super steep creek bottom that its head just went into this creek bottom. So I couldn't see a head. I could just see a deer body. And I was like, I know I shot at a buck, but I'm like, I don't know what just happened. So I'm like, I got to walk up and see what this is. I know it's mine. So I walk up and I'm like looking, I'm like, okay, it's a buck. And then I grab its rack and I freaked out, man. It was my biggest buck ever. Beautiful.
It's a nice one. It's very, very beautiful buck.
And it was fun because like you guys, it ended up getting pitch black on me. I was solo and I was like close to a full-on panic attack because all I kept thinking of was like mountain lion, monsters, like all this scary stuff. So I called on the help of you and some friends and mom and Dayron, Austin, Caden came out to help. And I'm super grateful that you guys all were so thoughtful to come out and help me. We threw him on a snow sled. Go ahead.
Well, what you probably don't know is that like I had gotten off work early, a little earlier than normal, and I come home and mom was supposed to come home from work and she was like running late and we got in a fight, like an argument fight and just pissing about, you know, this and that or whatever. And then you called and as soon as I saw you calling, I knew. I was like, oh, Jake got his buck. I literally was like, just, you know what I mean? Like you just do. And so anyways, so like, cause I think you called my phone or you called mom's, I can't remember the transition, but she was looking at her phone. And so like, you getting your buck actually ended the fight because we were like, I was like, well, Jake's gonna need help. We got to go help him, and we're gonna have to see if Dayron can go. And mom was like, well, I'm up for an adventure. Let's go out into the dark and, you know, pack this buck out of the backcountry. And so it was really cool because she was just really excited to get out there and do that. And it was like the fight was over. Like it didn't matter what we were talking about and fighting about. 2 minutes prior, it was all done. We were all just excited, you know, getting packs and everything set to come out. And mom called Austin and Caden jumped in with him and we went out there. And it was like one of the best nights. It was so fun.
It was fun. And that's what I was talking about it was so organic. Like to be able, because like hunting solo, when you get that animal, you experience it in a different way that's just as valuable, but you lose sort of that like companionship of like, you look around, there's like no one to high five. And so it's like, it's a different emotion because incidentally, up until, well, this year, like in the last couple of years, I've shot like 3 or 4 animals solo. So like most of my work is done solo and it's great. It's just it's meat in a freezer, but I don't know. I started to really miss like, you just shoot it and then what, you know? The best I can do is like I record a video on my phone of me all excited. But so it means a lot to have people that were able to come out and share that moment and see that deer in the field with me, especially having mom come out. Cause like, I don't, you know, she doesn't hunt. And so it's super valuable of an experience to have mom involved. But yeah, so it was a
Yeah,
super
no,
fun.
that to have her come out, and it was pretty interesting because I think you were on speakerphone, and you're like your instructions to me were like, the spot that we go, if you go to the left, it's in between these two canyons, but it's not over the ridge too far into the next valley. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And that was like it. And mom was like, how do you know where he's at? And I'm like, well, I just know. And she's like, yeah, but how could you know? And I'm like, it's just, I know where he's at. It's just, I don't need a lot of instruction on this one. Like,
Yeah,
and for her to go out, and then we were there, and she was like, wow, you guys knew exactly where each other was at. Was pretty special. Cause I think for her, a lot of times she's here and she kind of hears the stories and stuff, but when we talk about the communication that we have when we're out hunting, and almost being able to like read each other's thoughts to some degree. I know that sounds crazy, but like understanding like, okay, well, if Jake goes up around this ridge, I know he's going to continue on instead of cutting off that ridge. He's going to continue on, and I'll meet him over here or whatever.
yeah,
And for her to see the communication that we talk about, she talked about that a lot on the drive home, how impressed she was with that. And so it was really neat for me to have her see that.
yeah, absolutely. And it's something that like I try sometimes to explain to people. It's sort of like in sports. You play a certain time, such a long time of your career with a certain player. Like it's something you really find with like pitchers and catchers, or like a quarterback and I don't know, wide receiver or something. But like you play with this person so much that like you develop a chemistry that is like, I don't know, it's almost like twin telepathy. Like the most
Yeah.
notable thing to me is, for one, like how I can explain something like that and in extreme clear detail like exactly what I'm talking about. But the other thing that is overlooked sometimes is like when we're doing like we have like our own little sign language system that when we're in the field and we don't always have walkie talkies. I see you from 300 yards out. I look at you and we're like relaying signals to each other, and it's like I literally, as I'm doing that, I'm talking to myself as if I'm talking to you. But at the same time, like when you make a signal, I can hear the words you're saying. Like I can visualize and hear like in my ears like what you're saying to me. Like, and it's just like a super vague like, a point and then like this, or a point and like a loop. Like I'm gonna go here and around. We've developed over the years like this chemistry that is like it's unmatched. And it's just like this insane communication skill that like I don't know, we've just hunted together so much that it's like
Yeah. Well, and like there's been times where I'm like, I'm not quite sure where you're at, but like I can just kind of calculate in my head your speed and where you would be, and I'll start looking at that and kind of trying to get myself in a position where I can make contact with you. And I mean, it's pretty regular that you come out real close to where I'm thinking that you would be based on your speed of hunting. So yeah, I think you gain a lot by a lot of time spent in the field with somebody.
and yeah, and it's certainly something that I don't take for granted and appreciate, like the fact that I have a dad to go out and hunt with and that we are able to do what we do. But it's something that is built over, I mean, it's taken the better part of more than a decade for sure to develop,
Yeah.
because it wasn't always as easy as it is now. Like before, like I remember on various times, like getting lost, or me thinking you're lost, and communication breaks down from there. But like now it's like just that experience that you gain, and I know exactly what you're going to do most of the time without you telling me what you're going to do. And it's just what it is like, and some people might hear that and think that it's kind of ludicrous, but what it is really is just like, it's predictive patterning. Like it's just what you've always done. And you read a landscape and you say, oh, well, I've seen what he does on things like this a million times. I know exactly what he's going to do. And it's the same for me. Like I know the speed you go, and the speed I go is very, very different. And it's just the pace at which we're comfortable. And there's benefits to both, and there's drawbacks to both. But like, I know the speed you go, and the things you usually do on certain, circumstances. And so it's elite communication, like nonverbal communication, and it's actually wildly impressive. And I can't wait this next year. We're going to get a lot of it on film and be able to like showcase what we do.
Yeah, and it's wildly accurate too. I mean,
Yeah,
which is
like a huge
yeah,
percentage of the time. Like there's not many times that I end up actually, when you really do think about it, in the last, at least this year, there was not one time that it was wrong, because we never got lost. We never had a lapse in
yeah.
communication. So the system is 100% accurate, but it's something that you just can't like replicate with another person just suddenly.
Right. Well, and I know there's been times where I'm like, oh man, this is completely different in what, like how I normally hunt. And like if I'm alone or if you're not with me, it makes me stop and think, like if I do this, Jake's not going to have any idea. And so I need to make contact with you before I take this different route that I normally wouldn't take. And this is, in areas that we've never hunted in or areas
Yeah.
that are familiar. Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
I was just going to mention exactly that. Is the only time that things do get like a loop thrown in them is number one. The worst one is an area we haven't hunted in, because that sort of just changes the dynamic of like, it just, we're not familiar. Like usually we're in places we've hunted a million times, so I know where you're going to go.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going to go. But in certain instances, we hunt somewhere we've never been. That obviously throws a wrench in things. But I think the worst of all to me is when I'm hunting in grizzly country. Um, that takes, and we've done it quite a bit, but we haven't ever really split up a whole lot. But to me, that changes the dynamic. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to change the dynamic, but like my mentality is so shifted in grizzly country that like you don't know what might happen. You might get in a certain valley
Yeah.
and have a certain feeling, or you hear something or smell something, and you're like, not looking good. So it's hard to, a walkie talkie, like a communication system like radios would be imperative in grizzly country, because that it just can go
Yeah.
so bad.
Well, I noticed too, like when we are in areas where it's either grizzly country or areas that we haven't been in before, our separation distance, we shorten up.
Yeah.
Um, quite a bit actually. And so I think that, those little things make all the difference.
And I'm glad that I didn't have any intention of talking about this subject, but I'm glad that we got onto this, because there's 1,000 things that went right for us to harvest your elk, for you to harvest your elk. And I think part of it is sort of the fact that like, this is sort of against the foreshadowing of like, separating made every bit of difference.
All the difference.
And who knows, I don't know how the evening would have played out if I'm like, so I've just decided that this elk hunting story is number one, my favorite story of all time. Like thinking of that night and how it went down, like how could it not be number one? And so now that we've tantalized everybody for 38 and a half minutes, I think we ought to start this thing.
Okay.
um, I hope everyone's going to stick around long enough to get to this point. We'll break it up. But where I want to start is where the whole thing started, was the draw. So it's no secret. I want to keep this. I'm going to be that guy. I'll be the guy that says it. I'm not telling anybody where the spot is at. You couldn't hire the best torturer in the world. Like I won't disclose this secret. You couldn't pay me enough money to disclose where this place is at.
Very few people.
Very few people. Like if you want to come to the spot, number one, I won't take you. And number two, if I did take you, I'll probably blindfold you and hit you in the head with a hammer. Because
To the best of my knowledge, other than you and I, only 4 other people know.
And do they really know though? Like, it's hard to get there.
Yeah.
And it's super tough to get. And it's far away, which is a super good bonus. But yeah, so let's break this down, and I want to be sort of methodical about how we do this because it's important, I think, to tell the whole story because unfortunately, and I actually regret this daily, is the fact that we did not get this on film or on camera. Um, that was some personal reasons. I wanted to set the camera down for the remainder of the year and just enjoy hunting and get that spark back for hunting because I was having a hard time filming hunts and it went from like it's about to me it's always been about the animal, the harvest, the moment, the experience, and trying to get it on camera became the forefront of my thoughts, and it ruined, like, I wasn't having fun like for the last couple of years. Like, it's been kind of not fun, and this year I said, you know what, putting the camera down and I'm just enjoying this year. And it's no coincidence that it was the funnest hunting season of my life. um
Yeah.
well, we're going to start this back at the draw last March. I believe that's when the elk applications you put them in. So we've been, and the best we'll say is Eastern Montana. That's what we're going to go with. We got this elk in Eastern Montana. Um, so let's start with. I want to be careful how I ask these questions because
Okay.
I don't want to be too leading or too locational. Um, I don't even know how to word it. This first question, I can't even ask it. I was going to ask like why this area, but that's it's no secret. But Eastern Montana. So what thought process did you have of where you're going to apply and why?
Um, well, we had talked about at the end of last year, again, like where we're going to put in and what tags we're going to put in for all of the special permits. And I honestly, when I put in for the tag, I honestly can't say that there was anything specific other than it was like just like this gut sensation that this is the area I wanted to hunt in. Because I'd wanted to spend some real time down in this area anyways. And so that was what I really wanted, was just, I wanted to hunt in that area. And so, putting in for the tag, and again, I didn't think I was going to get it. I just was putting in for, a special permit elk tag.
Yeah, and with this, and I don't know if there's truth to this. I think that it's pretty accurate, but what I've heard a bunch is that the guys who draw this tag usually have about 10 bonus points or so, and that equates to they've been applying for 10 years. And
Yeah.
if you're comfortable, you had.
I had 2 bonus points. And this is the first time I put in for this tag.
So there'd be some guys who would throw a fit if, and well, now everyone knows, but like I have 4 bonus points, and I've been applying for. I had an easier tag to draw, and I didn't draw it, and you had 2 bonus points, whereas most guys who do draw this tag have applied for 10 years, and so
Or more. A lot of the guys that I talk to, like it is like a once in a lifetime.
and that's so wild to me because it's like, I don't know. I just, you got to get good at archery to get tagged because like I don't want to continue like if I go another year of not getting my elk permit, like I know I shouldn't complain because it's been 4 years, but like I'm young and 4 years is a long time for a young person. Like it's driving me insane. And so it's even weird to be like I've applied for 4 years and just nothing. Um, yeah, so I'll talk about my experience with the draw very quickly. Is I put in for my permit, didn't get it, was numb. I expected not to get it ultimately, but I always get like a little excitement. Bless you. And then I think it was pretty quickly after I believe you told me that the results were out, and it was like 4 or 5 days earlier than I was even expecting.
Yeah, yeah, because some of the guys at work were like, oh, they had the typical, uh, Charlie Brown attitude of like, oh, I didn't get anything, like,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, they're out for a while, and they're like, no, no, the results are out. So I remember I sent you a message, asking if you got your results.
Yeah. And that's when I went to check. Obviously, I did not. But I don't think you told me until I don't think you told me about yours until after I had already found out
I
mine.
hadn't checked. Yeah, I hadn't checked. I was at work and I just wasn't able to get to it. And so, yeah, when I remembered, I hadn't checked when I sent you the text message about the results were out.
Yeah. And so I was kind of just like, I don't know, general tag year. Like it's all I've ever known, so I wasn't like bothered by it. But then like when did you go to check and how did you find out?
Um, I was gonna wait. Um, I was gonna wait till I got home, and I was gonna have you come over because I think you sent me a message that you didn't get yours, and so I was like, well, at first I was gonna wait, and then I kind of got a break throughout the day, and I was like, well, I'll just check, like, because I fully thought that I was gonna be the same as every year. It's like, I didn't get it, and or didn't get it, anything special, just general tag, and so I logged on and I was looking and I was like confused because I was like, because you scroll down and it shows the ones that you're not successful first. And I was like, like this is weird. And I was like, well, where's my elk tag? And then I kept scrolling and then I saw it and I was just kind of in shock. I was just like, and it was, yeah, it was just, I was in shock. Like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, what? And I figured something was wrong, that they had messed up somehow and that I wasn't supposed to get this tag.
Now that's a real Charlie Brown attitude.
I know. Yeah, I just.
Nothing good happened to me. That can't be right.
Well, because, like, this year, especially, like, all I've heard all year long is just everybody's like, 2020, like it's just a horrible year. And, there's a lot of things that have gone wrong this year. Absolutely. But, and I honestly, I have like that, it's kind of like that survivor's guilt to some degree because like so many good things have happened this year. And I, like it started off, I won fantasy football for the first time, I won the Super Bowl and I was just like, oh, blew me away. And then I won a gun in a gun raffle. So I was like, there's no way that I got this. This is just, it's too good to be true, all these things. And so, yeah, I was just blown away.
And you got the bull permit for that area, but you also got the cow permit, the same
Yeah.
cow permit, the cow elk.
Yeah, because the cow permit for that area goes later. The draw is later than the bull, so you get the bull tag. And I was like,
oh, sure.
Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
And we actually gone out and did some scouting in that area in March after I was successful with that. And I honestly don't know why I put in for the cow tag. I just was kind of like, you were putting in for cow tag, and I was like, oh, I'll put in for it. And I think really what I was thinking is that I was just build up some bonus points. But I got the cow tag too, which is somewhat rare as well.
Yeah, that was because I applied for that same cow tag and I did not get it. Which is, Charlie Brown.
And I got that one on no bonus points, I believe, or maybe one. I can't remember now, but.
And so, yeah, I actually did forget that we did go and do some scouting, and that's when I found my first elk shed, and then you, look, I actually have them. They're literally sitting over under my Christmas tree right now. Then you found a matching set to it, or the matching antler. And that was another little bit of foreshadowing of like, that was, okay, so here's my experience. You told me about this tag, and I could even get Miranda, and you could ask her right now. Like, my first initial thing was like, my whole hunting season like is no longer about me. I'm like, it's about you getting this tag and filling this tag. Like, I was super motivated, super dedicated. Like, I was asked about like my elk tag, and I was like, doesn't matter. Like, we're trying to get yours. And that
Yeah.
hunting season did not play out later, like to match those words. Like, I did not, for a while, like we did not go out to your hunting spot for a long time, which like
It seemed like, yeah, we took a break.
which really bothered me. Like, it started really bothering me because it was like me, because I kept asking you to go to this other spot. Let's go to this other spot, like super selfishly. And then like towards the end of the
Well,
season, I was like, dude, like I gotta get him out here soon. We gotta go.
I think what it was is during, and because I thought about this a little bit, I think we had so much success during bow season seeing large elk that it just seemed like, oh, we'll go back and we'll get one. And so I think it was just like, I don't know, I think the early season success for at least spotting them was kind of that reason for it, like, because
Yeah.
you still needed to try to get an elk, and so we were going to areas that you were able to hunt. And yeah, that's kind of how I
That makes
viewed
sense.
that.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. Like, yeah, just I don't know. There were so many elk this year. I don't want to get too far ahead yet. So yeah, we find the sheds, and there was a ton of elk sign there. Like, and so when I first found out that you had that tag, I was solely dedicated to like the mission of we're gonna get you your elk. I also did not love the fact that it was that tag.
Yeah.
I wasn't like mad at you by any stretch of the imagination, but I was like, I kept in my mind being like, shit. Like, all I've ever heard from people about this tag is like, it's super, the elk are always on private lands. It's always some problem. There's 1,000 hunters. And I was like, we're going to have to grind for this. But I was like down for the fight, but I was also like, dude, this is just going to be like a butt kicker. And you know what? It was, all truth be told, the easiest like elk hunting I've ever experienced in my life. Like, the most elk I've ever seen, the biggest elk I've ever seen. And then just like, obviously like archery, we were out there. I mean, you were out there for what, 20 days, I believe?
Yeah.
Some, probably more. I think you were out there more. I think I was out there for half that, and it was hot. It was a hot September, but like we were getting
Yeah.
butts kicked, but we were in elk every single day of archery season.
Every
Um,
day.
so I mean, it was like fruitful. But again, we'll save those stories for later when we get there. It's March or whatever. We go scout. Um, and then yeah, that sort of the summer kind of went by, and I don't know, just a normal summer. We didn't really. I don't remember going down there again after March.
No, we didn't. And I was frustrated because I wanted to get down, and I don't remember what was going on, but well, I do now. Yeah, yeah. That's a lie. I do know it was the coronavirus, because it ended up, I ended up doing a lot more work at work because of that, and it just did not allow me to free up the time to get down there and scout like I wanted.
Hmm. And I was fighting wildland fires for most of the summer, and so I was gone like most
Yeah.
of the time, so I never was able to get down there. Um, but yeah, so like the first sort of, well, not the first, but like I guess what I want some insight on is sort of like, this was a spot that is, and I'm not gonna I'm gonna try to ask these without sort of disclosing too much. This is sort of like the farthest point away from where I think anyone might imagine there's elk. Um,
Yeah.
like most people are on this other section of where we're at, and we're over on this spot. And it's like, what, without like disclosing too much location stuff, like what like led to you being like, because you were very specific about this is where we're putting camp and we're going around these areas. Like, what was the decision, or like what led you to like have that thought process? Because you were super specific, like pretty much from the start, like very early about like this is where I want to go, and you just, it's like you knew without ever knowing, because we had never been there, but like I want to be very explicit, and like the viewers and everyone need to know, like you were very explicit and very like right here on the map. You showed me, you're like, this is where we're going. Like you just knew. It's like you knew.
Yeah, it actually ended up turning out really good. But I had talked to people about the area, people that had hunted it before, people that had the same tag, and people that lived down in that area. And actually, everybody gave me complete opposite advice of what I did. Um, and so, people said, "Oh, you gotta hunt this area. If you're gonna see them, they're down this area, or they're going to be east of here, whatever." And I got a map, like a fold out map, not an online thing. And I spent hours, literally hours. I had that map just out on the living room floor, and I was just looking at roads. I was looking at like travel paths and hunt, like campgrounds and where people, private property and water sources. And I just kept going to these areas of these roadless areas where there are no roads, and people aren't, uh, just, I didn't know if anybody would be in the areas or not, but I just kept looking, and I was like, where would elk travel? Where were some of the, the paths that they would take for food and for water and cover? And not only during hunting season, but pre-season and after, late season, where we found those sheds, and where they winter, and where, just. And I just kept going back to, areas of, kind of off the grid, where it takes a lot of work to get back into, and that there aren't going to be, side by sides traveling down dirt roads and things like that. And I just found this area that it was basically the furthest point that I could find, and the most desolate area in that entire area. And I was like, yeah, that's if I'm gonna find something big, I'm gonna have to get to the end of this road, and that's where we'll camp, is at the very end of the road, and then we're gonna hike in. And I noticed topography wise that there was a few 5-point conversions, and I guess, I don't know if that's kind of one of our secret hunting tactics, but there was the same with my buck. When I found that ridge and there was a 5-point conversion, 5 points, 5 areas of escape for animals. I've found a few of those on that on the map, and so I thought, that would be pretty good if we could get into some of those areas. And so that's really, it just looked right more than anything. And, I'd never physically been there. I'd never talked to anybody that was physically where we went. It was just really all on the map, and kind of listening to other hunters and kind of some of the experience that they had, as far as like, one of the guys I talked to, he was camped at one of the spots the previous year, and just like 10, 11 o'clock at night, just driver after, truck after truck going down these dirt roads. And he thought, hey, I'm at this area. Can't believe there's more people coming in to hunt. And I just wanted to avoid that. I wanted to be able to get into an area where, that people don't go because it's very hard work, or you have to have horseback, capabilities to get something out, or you have to do what we did is, pack meat for 30 hours straight. But yeah, that was really it. It was just spend a lot of time going over that map and just looking and looking and looking.
Yeah. Because it just like, to me, it was, I mean, ultimately, like, it was your tag. And so I'm like, I never had any say, like, and not that I just never like tried to tell you like, hey, we should go here. But like, I just was sort of like, I don't know. I think I just never was able to like research myself. And again, it was your tag. So I was just kind of going, following your lead and just letting you take over this one. And it was awesome. Like, I don't know. The thing that amazes me to this day is just how like smart you are about like everything in life is like everything in life you're so smart about, but like with hunting, like the methodical, like your methodical ways and your thoughtfulness like set you apart from many other hunters, to where like there's a lot of guys that wake up, 5 in the morning, grab a Jack Links and a coffee, and they hit the road, and they stay on the roads, and they drive the roads all day, and they don't see any deer, and they go home at night and they're like, oh, there's no deer there. And it's like, okay, the number one thing is like, you got to get off the roads, and like this spot was a check for that. The general rule of like where you want to be is like 2 miles at least from any given road. Like that's, I've heard that, like, I'll use his likeness, Randy Newberg. I watched a lot of his videos about like where he talks about where he sees the elk the most, in 2 miles from like a given road. And we weren't necessarily 2 miles, I don't know, maybe close-ish, but like this area, like in particular, was pretty roadless.
Mhm.
Comparatively to a lot of the area, it was pretty roadless. Um, and so like it was, I don't know, it's my favorite spot I've ever been in the world. And I really, initially I was super like pessimistic about the tag, because I was just going off what everybody else said. Like there's always 1,000 hunters, there's elk on private, you can't get them off private. And it's like I was super pessimistic. And then the first moment that I was ever like, okay, this might work, is when we found the elk sheds. And like with the elk sheds, there was like, fresh, not fresh, but like there was like elk scat everywhere in this particular area. And we weren't even in the same spot when we found those sheds, but I was like, there's a lot of elk here. And the
Yeah.
shed, at the time, the sheds, I was like, that's a huge elk. And then like in hindsight, in retrospect, it's like the sheds I have they don't touch the size of your bull you got. So it's like, it's just wild. But no, so like just I've always, that was the first point where I was like, this might work, is when we found the set. Because I was like, I don't know, I had a feeling, I was like, there's not elk in this area. There's not elk here. And then obviously, well, I was never more wrong about something in my life. But oh, that's something that I really admire, is just how like thoughtful and methodical you are. And it pays dividends, because I'm a much more impulsive, like run and gun, like let me get there and then I'll figure it out kind of guy. But you're like, you took the time to learn this area and to figure it out and to do all these things, and like you studied the maps and you went there beforehand, and you scouted and all these things. And it's like, it was very admirable. And then I think that I was super excited after we found the sheds. And then we get fast forward to, I don't know, did you go out before season started and set up camp?
Yeah.
You did. Okay,
Yeah.
because I remember you
Yeah.
went out to go scouting. So if you want to start touching on that process real quick, because nothing significant happened between pretty much when we found the sheds and went home to like fast forward to, was it late August, early September?
It was right at it was just a few days actually before hunting season started. Well, and I guess one more thing on why I chose that spot was where we camped, it allowed us to hunt several different areas. But it kind of like, if you were going to make a star around camp, you could go out this way and, you could hunt all day and not,
Yeah.
and then back and this area is completely different. In this area, it was just kind of perfect where you could just hunt so many different areas. It was right in the middle. But yeah, I went out and I just went down by myself, and I just had a small camp. And when I got there, it was 103 degrees when I got there, and I was just it blew me away because I remember I got out and I was just gonna scout for the weekend and just kind of look at some areas and just kind of see, actually get boots on the ground in the area that we've been looking on the map. And when I got there, because I was kind of like, what's this gonna look like, because I hadn't seen the area and there's no pictures. And but when I got there, I was like, it was even better than I imagined. So I was like, this is a good place because it felt better, it looked better than I imagined it would. And but it was so hot. I remember I logged down in my journal. It was 5:15 and it was 103 degrees. And I set camp up, and I just remember I kind of got everything ready and set out so that I could get up early in the morning and go scouting. And I made dinner, and, cause I was excited. I was, I had like this mountain house meal and, but it was terrible because it was just so hot, and I don't know why I heated up a meal, but I'd been waiting all year to just, be out at hunting camp and eat a mountain house meal. So, but it was awful. Like I was just like, this is just, I couldn't even eat the whole thing. And, yeah, I remember sitting there and the sun was setting. It was just because of all the wildfires, the smoke, it was blistering hot and it just would not cool off. But the sun was just like, it was just this brilliant red. And I had been waiting forever to get out into the woods, get out of the office and just get out in the woods and be out there. And I was sitting in my camp chair and I was like, F this. And I got in the truck and turned it on and turned the air conditioner on because I was pouring sweat outside. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight. Okay. And I spent as much as I'd been waiting to get to hunting camp, I spent the majority of that night sitting in the truck, listening to music, trying to cool off because it was off. But I heard that night. I heard in the tent by myself. I heard some moving around out in the bushes behind my my little camp there, and I didn't think much of it. And got up in the morning and got my pack on and went to go scout area. And less than a quarter mile, I saw the biggest bear track ever down there. Right. I remember I took a picture of it and sent it to you. It was just, I was blown away of how big that bear track was for this area. And I scouted around go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, that was another one of those points where I started getting like real excited was when you sent me the picture of the bear print. And I was like, this place sounds sick. Like if there's black all over the place and like, I don't know, I was just super stoked. Like I think for some reason I had it out in my mind that I was like, I was going to shoot that black bear. Cause I remember the stories you told me, you were just like, dude, there's sign everywhere. There's bear scat everywhere. And so go ahead and go through what you were about to hit.
Yeah, I just trying to get a feel for the area and kind of look to see what the map looked like and try to familiarize myself from, points that I'd seen on the map to actually, get my eyes on, mountain peaks and valleys and trails and things like that. And Yeah, I didn't see any. I saw a lot of sign, but I didn't see any elk. Um, and so I was, again, you kind of go in think, hoping that you're going to see something. But I left. I remember leaving just kind of like, I hope I'm right, but I was dead set on going back. And yeah, I mean, that was I was very surprised when we did go back and the amount of elk that we were seeing.
Yeah. I think a good stopping point will be we'll stop there with the story, and then we will pick back up because the next time we came out together next, right? Or no, nope, that's wrong. You came back, you eventually, a few days later or whatever, went back by yourself, and then I met you out there.
Yep.
So we just covered up to where you first got out there and then came back home, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was excited, but it was the heat was really, and the heat lasted. It never went away. It
Yeah.
wasn't that was the hottest it was that the entire hunting season was that first day. It was like September 4th or 3rd or 2nd, something like that. And it was just ungodly hot, but the heat stayed all season.
Yeah, that was the most notable thing that I struggled with was the heat. Like, because to me, hunting season is very sacred, very special. And I really, like, I'm a cold weather guy. And, like, hunting season for me needs to be cold weather, like just that particular feel in the air, that crispness. And it was so hot that I was like, despite how much elk we were seeing, I was just like not having it because I'm just like so hot all the time. But
That was the biggest challenge of this year was the heat. I
yeah,
remember like just being able to keep water in us. And I remember at one point we were just like taking a break and I was laying there and I was just like sweating and I was just like, why can't it rain? Just if it could rain for, an hour, it would make me happy because it was dusty and hot. And I kept thinking about, well, I guess it would have been hunting season 2017 where we got flooded out with rain.
yeah, and that was a canvas elk tent. Yeah,
Yep. Soaked.
I would have rather been soaked than the heat we were feeling, honestly.
It was relentless, the heat.
Yeah. I remember that night we got flooded out. I was sleeping just on a sleeping bag. I didn't have a mat. And that was like a nasty night. Like I remember like inches of rain. I remember waking up and there was standing water in the tent. And I was like so tired that I like woke up to like a completely drenched, soaked sleeping bag. I remember waking up being like, and then just like going back to bed because I was like, you can't win. You lose right there. It's over.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I remember. Yeah, my sleep bag was soaked, and I thought I was with you. I was so tired. I thought if I flipped my pillow over, that it would be dry, and it was like it shocked me that I couldn't just flip my little pillow over because it was so heavy. It was just like it was just
yeah,
drenched.
man.
Awful, horrible.
I'll take moisture like that every day of the week though over like the dry hot easily. So yeah, I think we will have this as our stopping point, and then we will pick back up when you came back out the second time to actually
Okay.
start hunting is when we will pick back up. So
Okay.
thank you everybody for listening. Hopefully you made it this far into part one of the best elk hunting story ever. We will get this uploaded and then let everybody have a listen, and then we will get episode 2. We will start. We'll record that. I won't make the plans here on the show, so you guys don't have to sit here listening to me making plans, but we will get that going here soon. So thank you everybody for listening. I will thank you after the next episode when we finish, and stick around for part 2.